first question is, do you think the public should see the full Mueller report?
Absolutely. I think the report needs to be made public. It needs to be released to the Congress, and it needs to be released to the American people. This has consumed 2 years of the American people's time, and we need to have full transparency. We need to know the special counsel's conclusions.
Okay. And the president has continued to unleash attacks on the special counsel investigation, even in the probe's final hours, calling it a big hoax, a witch hunt. Do you agree with the president that the Mueller investigation was a witch hunt?
I think the Mueller investigation went on far too long, and I think Bob Mueller made a serious mistake when he brought together the team of investigators and lawyers and selected so many partisan Democrats who had been longtime Democratic donors. I think that was unfortunate because by doing that, it undermined the credibility and impartiality of the special counsel's office.
Do you think it went as far?
That being said, we're being... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Do you think, would you go as far, though, as the president has in calling it a witch hunt?
I'll leave that language to the president. I will say I'm concerned that it may have become a fishing expedition. We'll see when we see the report. We'll see what's in the report. But I do think it's striking that at least the early indications are there are no further indictments, which means, as you pointed out at the top of the show, that not a single person was indicted for colluding with the Russians to influence the 2016 election. If that's right, that there are no indictments for collusion with the Russians, that's good news for the American people. Those were serious charges when they were raised 2 years ago. And if the special counsel concluded that there is not evidence that occurred, that would be very good news.
So, as you mentioned, a senior Justice Department official is telling CNN that he's not recommending any further indictments. But we do know that there are other investigations going on elsewhere in the Justice Department into the president's businesses, his inaugural committee, his charitable foundation. Are Republicans right to be popping the champagne right now? I'm not saying you are, but others are. Or is it premature?
Listen, if anyone thinks that the Mueller report being concluded is the end of the Democrats' attempt to take down President Trump, they haven't been paying attention the last 2 years. It was striking as I listened to your interview with Congressman Nadler that he was immediately pivoting away. Okay, fine. Yesterday, the Mueller report was the end all and be all. It was going to be the salvation for the Democrats and destroy President Trump. Now you can argue.
Chairman Schiff, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks, George.
The biggest news from Robert Mueller so far is that there are no new indictments for that underlying any cooperation with the conspiracy with the Russians to interfere in our elections. And we're already seeing Rudy Giuliani come out with a tweet yesterday about that, citing you. He said your previous statement saying there is significant evidence of collusion involving the Trump campaign. I trust he, Adam Schiff, is relieved there is no collusion, and I hope he will apologize for his mistake. We all make them. The real virtue is to admit it. It would help us heal. You going to apologize?
I think Mr. Giuliani would be wise to wait until the report is made public before making any pronouncements about vindication. And likewise, people should wait to determine just how incriminating it is. We know that the special counsel was not permitted to indict a sitting president, and we ought to see what evidence he produced, both on the issue of conspiracy as well as on the issue of obstruction of justice. So Mr. Giuliani would be wise to do something he has rarely done, and that is wait till we see the facts.
You have said, though, in the past there was significant evidence of collusion. How do you square that with Robert Mueller's decision not to indict anyone?
And there is significant evidence of collusion, and we've set that out time and time again, from the secret meetings in Trump Tower to the conversations between Flynn, the Russian ambassador, to the providing of polling data to someone linked to Russian intelligence, and Stone's conversation with WikiLeaks and the GRU through
none of it prosecuted.
No, that's true. And as I pointed out on your show many times, there's a difference between compelling evidence of collusion and whether the special counsel concludes that he can prove beyond a reasonable doubt the criminal charge of conspiracy. And as I've said before, George, I leave that decision to Bob Mueller, and I have full confidence in him. And I think, frankly, the country owes Bob Mueller a debt of gratitude for conducting the investigation as professionally as he has. So I have trust in his prosecutorial judgment, but that doesn't mean, of course, that there isn't compelling and incriminating evidence that should be shared with the American people.
What you're seeing some of the president's allies already say is that this is vindication for the president.
Well, they've been saying with each indictment that it's vindication that now about 6 people close to the president have been indicted. That hardly looks like vindication to me. But again, let's see what the report has to say. If they're so confident that the report is going to exonerate them, they should fight to make that report and the underlying evidence public and available to Congress. But I suspect that we'll find those words of transparency to prove hollow, that in fact they will fight to make sure that Congress doesn't get this underlying evidence. But we are going to take it as far as necessary to make sure that we do. We have an independent obligation to share the facts with the American people. We in the intelligence community have a particular obligation to determine whether there is evidence that the president may be compromised in any way, whether that is criminal or not. And of course, there are indications that he was pursuing money in Russia through Trump Tower and other potential real estate that could be deeply compromising.
You say you're going to take it as far as necessary. That means subpoena first, then sue?
It means make the request. If the request is denied, subpoena. If the subpoenas are denied, we will haul people before the Congress. And yes, we will prosecute in court as necessary to get this information. And, you know, I'll say this. I think that Neil